Welcome back to the latest edition of Until Saturday, live reaction edition. Ohio State loses on the road to Michigan 30-24, and I thought was an incredible game. It's kind of what the sport is made of, all the hype going into it, all the storylines, kind of win or go home attitude. I'm going to really miss this when the playoff expands to 12. But Dave, what are your initial thoughts of this? And there's a lot. I think there's a lot of takeaways here, and I don't know if we're going to be able to keep this to 10 minutes, but let me just tell you this. Sorry if I'm scatterbrained. A lot happening. They zoomed in on Ryan Day's face as the clock was ticking down, and I cannot imagine what is going through that man's head right now.
Well, you got to just sit in it at this point. I think for me, big picture. This was there's so many college football games every year, but every now and then you get a game like this where every play just feels like it could tilt the axis of the earth. And this was one of those games. Just every play, you just felt the weight of the entire season, the trajectory of every program of your entire program. And it was incredible theater, not particularly well played in some ways, but it was compelling. It was really compelling to watch. Two really good teams. I still think, not to derail the conversation, I still think Georgia is clearly better than both of these teams. I don't know that I changed a lot of what I thought about these teams, big picture in terms of the national championship hunts. But this was college football at its best. And this is why this sport has gripped so many people. And like you said, it's a combination of so many storylines and so much talk outside the lines. And watching it play out inside the lines was really unbelievable today.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts, and we can go Michigan first or Ohio State first, and then I think we should kind of break it up into two. So since Michigan won, they won, and that's the pertinent thing. I thought that Michigan, considering the fact that their head coach was not out there, got a hell of a performance by their acting head coach, and Sherrone Moore. And it kind of felt almost a little deja vu-y. Now, the game wasn't a blowout like it was the last 2 years, and Ohio State had a chance to win unlike the last 2 years. But when you get the ball back up 3 with 8 minutes left, and you drive all the way down the field and give Ohio State 1 minute left. Now, I would have gone for it on 4th and 4 at the end there. I don't know that I would have kicked the field.
No, you got to kick it. You got to kick it.
Regardless, it worked out for them. We don't have to fight about that. 8 minutes to 1 minute. By just playing smash mouth football. And it's like my thought process is, well, this is the exact moment that Lou Holtz was talking about for Ohio State. Like, you pay your defensive coordinator $2 million a year, and Michigan was bigger, stronger, and tougher with the game on the line at home and went down and won. So now that opens up Pandora's box about, how do you view Michigan going into a Big Ten championship game? They're probably going to win by 40 and then into the college football playoff. But then B as well, what does this mean for the way that you perceive the cheating scandal and, whether or not this diminishes the impact of that to you?
I think it does a little bit in terms of the impact of the cheating scandal. And I think too, you mentioned that final drive with the game on the line, it's sort of, I don't think it's fair to say it erases, but Ohio State's the same team that went down there and cut this lead to 3 with a drive that finished with 8 straight runs to get in the end zone and make this a ball game. It felt like the tide had turned a little bit for them. That was really, really impressive. And that's the kind of thing. I think I tweeted out that you could call that the Lou Holtz drive. But the problem with college football and football in general is that there's 2 lines of scrimmage, Ari. And it doesn't really matter what your offensive line does if you give the ball back and your defensive line gets dominated. And that's what happened today with the game on the line. You don't have to force a 3 and out there, but you can't let Michigan drain the clock like they did and give Kyle McCord a minute needing a touchdown. It's doable, but you're not built really to do that. You got a young quarterback on the road. That's a big ask, and you saw how it ended.
Yeah. So Michigan, doesn't matter what the signs are when you can just run the ball down your opposing team's throat.
Well, it does kind of matter, just for the record.
Yeah. It does matter, Ari. All it was they're going to run the ball. Ohio State knew that they were going to run the ball. I knew they were going to run the ball, and they ran the ball effectively.
Yeah, so, but stretch, trap, zone, all kinds of stuff.
No, I know, but it's first of all, they didn't have the signs in this game. But second of
That's
all,
true.
They just went out and did it. You know what I mean? And I think that you have a coach who's sitting at home that helped orchestrate a game plan, and then you had a coach that was there who put Michigan in a position to win the way that they have won the last 2 years, and they went out and did it. So I don't think there's anything that anybody could or should say to diminish that. And if you want to talk about the cheating scandal, maybe we could talk about it next week. But this win on its own, the only game that really matters on Michigan's schedule, they rose up and did it. So that's
and I think for all the J.J. McCarthy narrative conversation, listen, the numbers are not pretty today, and I don't think I think we can call sunset on his Heisman campaign.
Yeah,
but he made some really good throws today, and he was good enough. And he
that
did
touchdown throw over the middle in between the two defenders.
That was unbelievable.
Beauty. Yeah,
that was one of the best throws I've ever seen. And that one to that throw that he made rolling out. After the Oklahoma State or the Ohio State touchdown there, rolling out, he hit Cornelius Johnson at midfield for that first down, that huge play where it looked like he was going to almost throw it away. I mean, he made a bunch of big throws today. He was good enough to give them balance, to be able to run the ball, and that final drive, Ari, looks different if he hadn't made those throws earlier in the game. If Ohio State doesn't have to respect him. It's harder to do that. You have to soften up the box, and he did that well enough today. Listen, he's not the reason that they are where they're at today. He's not the reason that they necessarily won this game, but he was good enough to win the game for them. And Michigan won this game because the same reason they've been the team that they've been the last 2 or 3 years, their play on the line of scrimmage. It's why we've been talking about them as national championship contender all season. They won the line of scrimmage today. And, it's funny. I was talking to a coach last night. People talk about this is a line. The game's decided at the line of scrimmage. You can call it a cliche. You can call it whatever you want, but that's true. And Michigan is a great team because they are great on the lines. And when you're great on the lines, you can have, no Maserati Marv, no Malik Neighbors, no Jaden Daniels back there, no Bo Nix. You don't have necessarily the same dynamic playmakers, and you can still be great. And that's what Michigan is right now.
Yeah. So, okay, why don't we flip it now? Because this is, Stuart Mandel is at the game, but I do think that if the Michigan win and what this means is certainly a huge talking point for Michigan fans. But I think the number one most compelling thing about the result of this game now is what does this mean for Ohio State, their head coach, how you perceive the program, what needs to be done next. This is a Pandora's box of unbelievable to me. Like if you would have told me in the press box after Ryan Day's first win against Michigan in 2019 that Ohio State would lose 3 games in a row to Michigan, I would have drawn the clown art on your face. And it has happened now. And
we're going to go down this road. We're going to do this. We're going to have this conversation. You think that it's worth I'm not against having the conversation. I think it's a fair talking point. But yes or no?
You mean fire Ohio Ryan State? Day?
Yes.
I don't know that I'm at the point where I'm going to sit here and say they should fire him. But what I will say is he's 56-7 as Ohio State's coach. 3 of those losses are to their bitter rival, and the wins that he has in the 56 category don't seem to be nearly as important or memorable as the 7 losses that he has, because the 7 losses that he has are in big moments, and he's only been the head coach for what? This is his 5th year, I believe. And if 7 of your losses, 7 losses is how many Urban Meyer lost in his entire 7-year tenure. And if Ohio State's playing a schedule where all their big games are at the end of the year, that means that these are Michigan losses, playoff losses, and national championship game losses. And it hurts. So if you are an Ohio State fan, maybe this isn't the most rational time for discussion, but you have a head coach who is winding down the clock before halftime to set up a 52-yard field goal in freezing temperatures, and might have been out-called by an interim head coach on the other sideline that doesn't have Marvin Harrison as a receiver on the team. So if you're thinking about Ohio State's perspective here, their season is over. They're not going to the playoff anymore. They might get to go have a consolation trip to Miami and play a team like Louisville in a snooze fest. But
probably not Louisville, who lost.
How do you oh yeah, they did lose today. I didn't know they were today.
They'll probably play Missouri or somebody anyway.
What's the next step here? It's now you kind of hope that Michigan loses half of its team. Jim Harbaugh goes to the NFL, and you get a chance to win. Like, I don't even think beating Michigan next year even eases the blow of losing the ones that matter. And of course, obviously, Ohio State fans are always going to take a win over Michigan, but these are the wins that you want. The one that, have people thinking about Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler 2 days before. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not, there's something off here. And here's the column that I'm trying to write. I don't know if I'll be cleared to write it. But in 2019, I went and visited J.J. McCarthy in high school. I went to his high school, and I wanted to write a profile on him and why he went to Michigan and his recruitment at Ohio State. And he was a very confident young man, as a teenager who had no hair under his armpits yet. And he said he was going to change the Michigan rivalry. And then he went into great detail about how Ohio State's head coach not only didn't take him over Kyle McCord, but was misled him during the process, which made him feel a hatred towards Ohio State. So you can get all onto Ryan Day in terms of all the things that he did wrong on the field on Saturday, but how do you also account for the fact that the one thing that he unequivocally does great is pick and develop quarterbacks? A, he probably made the wrong decision in that regard. And then B, they lost, at the end of the game with Maserati Marv running all over the place because of an interception. Now,
yeah,
you had a minute left, but there's a lot to unpack here in terms of in-game play calls that might have been scary or weak, and then also the way he made his roster costing him in a big way. Like, there's not a lot of redeeming qualities here for why you would feel confident about Ryan Day, and his record is not important. So, I just don't know from your perspective, how do you think an Ohio State fan should feel if you roll your eyes at the notion that they are wrong for thinking he should be fired?
I don't know about that. I don't know essentially that you should feel good about it, but I think that like I said, I think there's risk in trying to make a change. But ultimately, you can look at some of the micro decisions today. The one at the end of the half, I don't know that rose to the level of, we like to say, coaching malpractice, but I don't understand the thought process there.
Scared. That's what it is. It's scared.
What are you even scared of? Like scared doesn't even really make, ultimately, that play ended with 38 seconds left. They still had a timeout in their pocket, correct? And they chose to use it at the end. Am I right there?
They used the last timeout to call a timeout with 3 seconds left to kick the field.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not even I cannot even wrap my head around the idea that you want to settle for a 52-yard field goal. Imagine if you kick that ball, from 40 yards instead, and instead of giving the ball to Kyle McCord, with a minute 17
to score a touchdown, you're in field goal range already.
And that changes Michigan's approach, because that game is probably tied and there's a lot of pressure on that kick. You make them make some decisions. That drive is different. Michigan isn't trying to hold on to the lead. Michigan knows, hey, we got to get points on this drive, and that changes a lot. It's just that, there's so many decisions that are made in a football game, but you can usually deduce close games down to a handful that really acutely impact the outcome. And settling, this is college football, Ari. I mean, I don't care how money your kicker is. The odds of making a 50-yard field goal are probably sub 50%.
52.
For even the best in college. Yes.
In cold temperatures, in that environment.
Yes, in cold temperatures. You're down 4, by the way. So it's not like you've got a 10-point lead and you're just not trying to not trying to let them back in the game. It's an insane decision. And so, you paid for it late, because that changes the entire complexion of the last 10 minutes of that game.
Well, also too, it's like sometimes coaching is like your blackjack card. It's like, oh, I've got a 6 against an 8. What do I do here? I look at it, and then I'm just a robot for the analytics. But to me, I think, I kind of go with Dion a little bit. And I should have said that with you on the call. Don't go into a Dion rant. But how you call the game also permeates on your sideline. And if you do things that are at least interpreted as weak or scared or overly cautious or things, that makes your team tense, in my opinion. Also, if you were going, what do you think he would have done in that scenario if they were playing Maryland?
I don't think that's the most important question. I think the most important question, Ari, is we're going to whip out our vial of truth serum right now. I'm holding my syringe right now. I'm injecting it into Michigan's 15 best offensive players, and I'm asking them,
Are you going to kick through here?
No, how'd you feel about packing it in there with 38 seconds left in plus territory?
Yeah.
I think that their answers would be very revealing, and I think that's a problem.
It's like you have to call the game the way you would call it against Maryland, because that's the way you coach and the way that you approach it. But also, you have to call the game in a way where you actually think about the positive things that are happening as a result of the play working, not the negative things that happen. I think that's reverse. You can't think about what's going to go wrong, or are we giving 3 points to Michigan here, or you got to go, we have Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka. We're going to go get the first down. Like that's the way that I would want my coach to view the game. So I just think that this is a very monumental shift in, the rivalry, not just because of the last 2 years, but also just because it's like, does Ohio State have a Ryan Day problem is a very, very, very big question at one of the major programs in the sport. And what do you do from here is a very fascinating discussion. Now, there's a lot of College Station jokes and all that stuff. I anticipate that he'll be the head coach at Ohio State next year. But, man, this is not the vibe that you want if you are an Ohio State fan, and certainly not a vibe that anybody has been familiar with since the mid-1990s. So, I think there's a lot to unpack here, Dave. But Michigan wins. They win in a very impressive way in the fourth quarter on their home field without their head coach and a interim or call-in head coach doing really, really well. Is there anything that we forgot to unpack here before we spend 45 minutes on the live reaction show tonight, breaking down the day? It is really, really significant, the Ohio State angle to this.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, Ari, I think my main takeaway from this game is just like that 3-hour window is why we love this sport 365 days a year. Like, that was incredible. Again, the stakes, the drama is awesome. Like, that was awesome. It was a great game. Somebody's got to lose it. If you want to make sweeping generalizations that Ryan Day is soft and will never get it done at Ohio State and fire him, okay. I think that that's different than saying you should be okay with losing those games. But I think my big takeaway as far as the Ryan Day conversation is Lincoln Riley constantly says, we're close. We're a couple plays away. We're really close. And I watch that team and I roll my eyes. And Ryan Day doesn't really say those types of things. But I watch that team and I say, they're a couple plays away from winning a national title. And I think if you want to make a change or go another direction, be careful. Be careful.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, we're going to let it marinate a little bit. We are going to watch the Iron Bowl now. We're going to get the Florida State game under our belts. We're going to let the college football playoff picture come into play here a little bit more as the day goes on. And then we will be back live at some point tonight after the Florida State game. I think shouldn't be too late to break down the entire game. We're going to have another conversation about Ohio State, Michigan tonight as we, write and read and do all our research, and, maybe we'll have some more points. So thank you so much for joining us live here for 20 minutes now. Enjoy the rest of the games, and obviously be certain to catch us later on when we are fully focused, prepared, have a rundown, all the things that, make the podcast great. So, Dave, thanks so much for stepping in during your flu game. And I know you're not feeling well. And for me, I'm going to go write something, I think. So, again, we'll see you guys tonight. Enjoy the rest of your day. And that was a hell of a time. So, thanks again for watching. We'll catch you later.